everybody, so in today's video I actually just wanted to do a very low-key recording and cook with some spare ribs. Now I know that the last time I cooked ribs on the pit barrel, according to YouTube, is when I first got it and it was kind of a disaster. So I wanted to do at least one quick update to basically show why I have come to really enjoy the pit barrel so much, especially when it comes to ribs. Yeah, so I got the pit barrel I think a few months ago, and I still remember that first set of ribs I got. I just basically loaded up the charcoal about halfway and, you know, threw, was it like half of one of those large chimneys of like hot charcoals? I threw it right in there, a couple of wood chunks, and I took my 3 hooks and I took this kind of traditional kind of Costco pack of 3 St. Louis spare ribs, and I just, you know, wiped them down, seasoned them, threw them on the hooks, and pretty much just banked on it being a very set it and forget it type of cook. And of course, for those of you who did watch that video, I ended up undercooking those ribs. The fire actually was a lot lower than 270. I think the majority of the cook, that fire was probably closer to 200 degrees. So it did not finish in that 3 to 4 hour time frame, as is typically expected when cooking on the pit barrel. Typically the pit barrel, from what I understand, if you're using the Kingsford Blues, you will get a temperature closer to 320, and then that will slowly kind of burn off, but 320 is kind of the starting point, and the average cook is about 275. But since then I've learned to make sure I'm always filling up that main kind of charcoal basket that sits on the bottom of the pit barrel, and then I got the smaller Weber chimney and I fill that up all the way, and so I kind of just use that as my go-to setup. And I've been using Kingsford Blue. One of you folks on the comments told me to, or at least shared, that you no longer use Kingsford Blue because of the type of flavor that it kind of imparts if you have like the sensitivity to charcoal, which I do. So I will definitely try out a different briquette, but I am not so keen on trying a lump charcoal just because it burns so much hotter, and I've yet to have the time or desire to experiment with lump charcoal on the pit barrel over and over again to a point where I feel like it's reliable and I can use it over and over again. But that brings me to this other dilemma, which is I saw this video from T. Roy Cooks a while ago where he took his Weber 22 and got the hook, some aftermarket hook set, and he cooked ribs on both and basically gave the win to the Weber. And I was thinking to myself, like, gosh, I mean, if you are hanging ribs in the Weber 22, isn't that the same thing as hanging in the pit barrel? And so my thought is I've been wanting to get back into the Weber Smokey Mountain. I had an 18, and I've been wanting to pick up a 22. Been scouring Craigslist actually for it. And I was thinking, if I can get my hands on a 22 and then pick up that rib hanger kit, do I still need then to hang on to my pit barrel? And that's brought me to some sad conclusions, which is if I can find a Weber 22, I might actually be retiring my pit barrel. By retiring, I mean selling it and using some of that money to offset the cost of a Weber Smokey Mountain. But nevertheless, even as I say that, I'm still really enjoying the pit barrel. When I'm cooking ribs these days, I'm always going to, I'm just going to leave you. I'm always going to the pit barrel. It just, I mean, because of the design, right? Like when you hang the ribs, and the drippings fall onto the hot charcoal and the wood pieces, and that flavor just kind of keeps circulating within the barrel, it definitely imparts a flavor that I cannot get from, definitely not my pellet grill, my Camp Chef pellet grill, and not my charcoal grill, and not even my offset. So that's definitely something I have to give to Pit Barrel, hands down, is they definitely created a, as many say, a rib cooking machine. All right. All right, here we go. So, anywho, if you probably noticed, I don't know if the cameras are picking up, I'm not trying to do anything fancy or elaborate with this video, or well, lately I've just been feeling a little bit too tired to do all the production stuff and just wanted to put some content out there. But if you notice, I've got the Oklahoma Joe in the back smoking. I think the wood's not the greatest, and I don't care because I've already wrapped my brisket, but I've got a brisket going in there. I've actually have some beef ribs, like a full plate of beef ribs over there resting in that cooler. And I'm doing all this because I've got my folks, my in-laws in town. They're visiting from South Carolina, and I want to get some feedback on what they think. So I've got pork spare ribs. These are just from Costco. Over here, I've got the newest Who's Smoking Rub. Just kidding. This is just a Meat Church shaker, and I really like their shakers just because they have the 7 holes over here, whereas the ones I bought from, I think, Walmart or somewhere, they only have the 3 holes and they don't really come out that well. So I ran out of that particular seasoning, so I just took it over and use it for my custom rubs. Anyways, what were we talking about? Pit Barrel drum smoker. You know, I actually have the folding grate for it as well. I was debating on like doing a pork shoulder on one side and then hanging ribs on the other. But one of the challenges, I mean, I bought it because I like the idea of it, and I think I got a good deal on it. But I think one of my concerns is that with longer cooks especially, you can't get in there and add more fuel if you need. And so that was always an advantage of the Weber Smokey Mountain that I saw in comparison to the Pit Barrel. But truth be told, I got through, let me think, I've got through at least 2 pork shoulders on the Pit Barrel without issue. Actually, I was just a little bit more conscious about filling it up more. I did have to spend a little bit more time managing the fire, meaning it wasn't just a set it and forget it deal. It wasn't just like I could set the intake on the bottom and then walk away from it. I had to come back periodically to either adjust that intake vent or even crack the lid a little bit just to get the fire back up again. So definitely not a full set it and forget it experience, but nevertheless, it just gives me a little bit of anxiety when I think about not being able to manage the fire and just kind of have to let it roll as it is. Well, that bone's going to cause a problem. Let's get that sucker out of there. Okay. All right. I didn't mention what this actually was in here though, but this is the rub, honestly, that I've just been going to for ribs for the last 2 months. It's a coffee grounded or coffee based rub. It's got like some ancho chili in it, some brown sugar, pepper, salt, garlic, smoked paprika, what else, coriander, a bunch of funky things. Actually, you know, I've never had these ribs with just the dry rub on there. I just start with this one, and towards the end of the cook, I go back through and I glaze each one of the ribs with, I always debate on these if I should do the back. I go in towards the end with a glaze that's half molasses, half ketchup, and I actually add a little bit of this seasoning to taste into that as well. And I honestly, I love them. I love them. And I'm one of those guys where once I find something that I really, really like, I tend not to deviate too much. So not much variety, I guess, in my cooking. Maybe some different meats here and there, but unless I stumble upon something that I really like, I tend not to deviate too far, which is, I guess, why that whole Central Texas, like brisket, like salt, pepper kind of style of cooking appeals to me, just because it's incredibly delicious and you can just make it over and over again and be satisfied. All right, so let me just get, oh, I should probably cut that. No, I won't cut that. It's a little windy today. All right, Hopefully that doesn't take off too much of the rub. Yeah, I'm pretty excited. Also, if you notice, I went ahead and cut my spare rib racks in half. The first few times I used the pit barrel, I just went ahead and left everything together. And even though people talk about how the bottom ribs don't get burnt as much as you would expect, sitting so much closer to the coals, in my experience, they still do. They still get a little bit tougher, a little bit drier. And the issue that I come up with is if you leave it all in one piece and then you hang it, the bottom typically is the thinner part of the ribs, and that of course will cook faster and therefore burn faster. So then you would think the best way then is to flip it and hook it from the other end. Well, if you hook it from the other end, the scary part of that is this the thinner part? Yeah, like you would hook it like at the second rib or something like that, right? You would put all the weight on that, and so it just makes me feel like it's more susceptible to falling through the hooks. And of course you can double hook and all these other things, but it just, whatever. I had 6 hooks, so I figured 3 racks of ribs, cut them in half, 6 hooks, use them all. It's been working out pretty well, other than when I go in to glaze them. Usually it makes me leave the lid open for longer than I want it to, and then that increase of oxygen usually causes some pretty big spikes in the heat, because then the coals on the bottom really start catching and you can start seeing fire, and usually you have to wait for the heat to come down. So anyhow, I've got 6 of these half racks then going on. I gotta go inside and grab my hooks here in a second. And the idea is I'm gonna go in there, drop these in, expecting them to probably cook for about 2 to 3 hours. And I'll go through and spritz them every now and then. And then again, in that last hour, that last 30 minutes, at that point, I will go in with my glaze and then just lather them up nicely and just give them enough time to caramelize. I don't want them to cook or get hard or anything like that. I actually have not started the fire for the pit barrel yet. Well, I'm heating the coals right now next to me, so hopefully I can time this right so that gives a little bit of time for this stuff to adhere, and it gives me time to get my fire rolling and get these things hooked and drop them right in. All right. Alright, so it's been about an hour. Still holding about 300 degrees. That's probably gonna be really hot. Let me grab my glove. Alright, let's take a look here. Ooh, back that camera up. Oh yeah, look at that color. Love it. Alright, I'm gonna come back here in a second and start spritzing. Alright, how are we looking? See, it doesn't look dried out at all. Fantastic. Going with a little bit of 50-50 apple cider vinegar and water. Oh. So I think the spritzer likes to be shot like this. Gangster! Alright, that's the hour and a half mark-ish. See you later. Alright, so here we are. Still have some finishing up here. This is 1 of 6. I just temped this one with the Thermapen. It's coming in at about 203, 204. And just because we have dinner here starting soon. I'm just gonna go ahead and cut into these and I guess do a quick taste test and see how everything went. Alright, so I got these all cut up. Take this one right here to take a look. Right there. Looks like a little smoke ring trying to form. Oops. There's your other side. Let me take that bite right there. Yeah, see, that's good. That's good. Just got some bite to it, but it's clean right off that bone. Again, that flavor on this pit barrel right here, where the drippings all fall down, kind of work its way back into those ribs. There's nothing like it. Nothing like it. So good. It's so good. Again, my dilemma still is, can the Weber Smokey Mountain do the same thing? And then, you know, I'd have a higher capacity at the Weber 22. But my gosh, I am not upset at owning a pit barrel right now. Alright, well folks, thanks for checking the video out. Thanks for stopping by. Again, as always, if you can, please like the video, subscribe, and I'll see you next time on Who's Smoking.